So I'd like to call this meeting to order. Channel 79, we're calling to order at, what time is it?
7:37.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is well, excuse me, I made everybody sign in, so now I'd like to say welcome. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 people, and I'm going to introduce just Mike Zagrove. He's the chairman of the building committee. Plus one?
Plus one.
Okay, so we'll leave this down at the end here. And figure I probably won't be able to read everybody's handwriting, and then I'll get it wrong. So thank you all for coming. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes from June 3rd. Does anyone have any corrections to the minutes? Hope you read them at least back then. Okay. May I have a motion to approve minutes?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The next item on our agenda is acceptance of donations to the town of Darien for the 2020 celebration. We're going to discuss and vote on that. It's on the agenda for the next RTM meeting. I went to, you know what that is?
Bicentennial?
Let me read the warning so you'll have a better idea of why we're even talking about this. If I can find it. It's right here. Here it says, this was from the Board of Selectmen. Said that, gifts over $10,000 have to be approved by the RTM. The 2020 committee is seeking donations for the celebration of the town of Darien's bicentennial, and the amount of the donations is expected to be up to $75,000. Board of Selectmen wishes, I think on Monday night, the Board of Selectmen accepted. They voted to support the celebration, and they request that these donations be appropriated for the purpose of celebrating the town's bicentennial. So I've tried to cut this short, and it didn't work very well. Essentially, they're hoping to raise $75,000, and we have to give them they are allowed to raise it, and then they give it to the town, and the town allows them then it to be spent on this purpose. And so, what we have, I went to a subcommittee meeting of the Monument and Ceremonies Commission, which is in charge of the whole thing, on last Wednesday, and it is a super committee. And the chairman is Alan Miller. They seem to have, there are lots of people on the committee, and everybody has a job, and everybody is very helpful. And I was very impressed. So they're about to go out with their first mailing. There it is. Here it is.
This mailing going to everybody in town?
This is what it looks like. Very nicely, somebody donated, designing it, which is cool. And it says, in 2020, the town will celebrate its bicentennial, and plans are in the works to make this a year to remember. Please mark your calendars for these special events. The opening day ceremony will be on January 10th, which will be held in the Town Hall Auditorium, and we'll have a guest speaker as well as dignitaries. The Weed Beach Fest will have a bicentennial bash. There'll be a big birthday cake.
Does it have a date?
On June 6th. The Anniversary Day ceremony will be Friday, June 12th, and there'll be a Heritage Day celebration in autumn 2020. And they know what they want to do. And if they can raise the money, that's exactly what they will do, and they will do as much as the money that they raised will allow them to do. So I'm pass this around.
Can you just tell me the fourth point you said was a autumn?
It's on the back of this. Okay. So I'm just reading it there. And so they also are going to put up some hoping to put up some historical markers in town, but I think that the money for that will come from a sponsor, a private sponsor, And that's gonna be separate from the $75,000 that we're gonna be voting on tonight and then at the RTM meeting. So, are there questions? Anybody? Any questions? It's kinda like accepting the money from the fireworks in a way. A little bit of a formality, but, it'll be a good, that's what, Jack was talking about. It's a good opportunity at the RTM meeting for everyone to hear some of the things that they've got planned. But they're already doing things. The Historical Society is heavily involved, and they've already had a meeting with middle school and high school social studies teachers, and that there will be things going on at every level of the school system. So, no, it's in good hands. The historical marker project sounds great. I think they might have about 5. There'll be probably a town display case in the, here at Town Hall, and a time capsule, of course. And more stuff. But there will be another mailing. But right in this fall, autumn, they will be looking to raise that $75,000. So they're hoping if anyone in the RTM is so inclined, could bring their checkbook with them to the RTM meeting.
Was that what you were told to tell us?
Yes. But in a very low-key way.
And it only has to be checks, can't be cash.
That's right. It needs to be checks. It needs to be checks. If you're wondering what they're planning on doing with the money, this is a spreadsheet. I don't have enough for everybody. There are quite a few here. So make sure Patty gets one.
Okay.
Just put one down the other end. You can have a look at it. See sort of the way that what they're hoping to do. You can pass this down to Patty.
Here.
And like I said, if they don't make
What is
great,
it? I'm sorry,
Go
the
ahead.
historical markers for 35,000?
that's what they're hoping. They think that's probably what it will cost, what they want to do, but they're getting that will be a separate thing.
Well, what is it? Historical markers, doesn't
They
even.
look pretty cool. They had a sort of
Is
a,
it stone or?
no, but
gold?
they're not. Actually, they're sort of, they look to be about this big, and they're colored. They got pictures on them, and exactly, they did say where they were going to put them, but I can't off the top of my head
Yeah,
tell you
that's fine.
exactly.
Take a look.
Yeah.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you.
The gentleman that's in charge of that looked like he had it very well in hand. I mean, he knew exactly what he was going to do.
Dave, was it Dave Pollock?
I didn't write it down, to be honest, and that they were mostly new, were not faces I knew.
Oh, then that's the other committee.
Yeah. But there were at least like 12 people on that committee, at least. So, and like I said, the Historical Society is heavily involved. Right, may I, if you've had everybody's had a chance to have a look at that, may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to vote, for us to vote on accepting the $75,000 towards the bicentennial celebration.
And that money be appropriated for the bicentennial celebration, yes.
Agreed.
Second? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Next on the agenda is an update on the Pear Tree Beach Improvement Project. Cheryl is a member of the building committee, and I'm an alternate. And so we each have a hard copy, and I'm gonna. Everyone have? I just want to try to share. It helps to look at it. Okay, Cheryl, go.
Thanks, Adele.
I will chime in. I promise.
Good. I hope I'm representing this committee well on this building committee. because there are a lot of challenges that we have been faced with. But this is the latest. I didn't bring all the other drawings because they've changed over the time. So this is the latest. This is the one that's going to be passed on to ZBA, and this is the one that we're going to move forward with. Not the landscaping design yet, because that hasn't been finalized. But I'm just going to go through it.
Go to the, yeah, you can, yeah.
Maybe if you could pass that one down here and I could hold it up and flip it, or if somebody could.
Oh, yeah, that's a
Do
good
that?
idea.
Yeah,
Then
it's
everybody
hard.
can
It's
see
very
it.
Sure.
hard to read because the type is very tiny.
Well, I think she's going to talk
Yeah.
about
I want you,
It is
what I
fine.
want
It's
to,
just-
so to go inside and what
We
page
wanna
is it?
go.
No, there's no page, okay.
number
Go to the
2.
site design,
Go to the
Maybe-
first page, the
Yeah.
site design.
Right here?
there you go.
Okay. Hang on.
I can't do that anytime anybody asks me to.
So everybody, well, you don't need to be able to read it. all.
Right, it's more,
This is the site design. This is a part of the parking lot. And
What number is it?
5.
I think, but we're moving, I
Let's
think,
approach 5.
I think you wanna keep going.
Go to 7.
Go to
Yeah,
7.
we might as well just go to 7, because these are designs that we had talked about and the size of the parking stalls. So this approach number 7 seems to be the one that we're moving forward on. But we do have to go to ZBA and P&Z for the size of the parking stall.
If there's another one, 'cause I don't see that parking in the back. No, that's it, huh? Okay.
7.
There is.
What is
Do you guys all know what ZBA is? Is there anybody new on
Zoning
this
Board of
committee?
Appeals?
Right, zoning board of appeals.
You're talking here, Adele, the back, Adele.
What?
I'm just trying to see.
Are you talking about
I see it now.
this
It's
white
good,
line?
it's good. Keep going. It's good. I'm looking at it upside down, that's why.
Okay, so with this design number 7, I'm gonna take you through, I guess we'll start over at the picnic area. Can you see that down there at the side? So this is the picnic area, and that little circle there, they're going to be putting in some kind of a paver or a area where people on crutches and wheelchairs can get into, and then have grills and tables around in the sand area. We haven't gotten to how many or any of that yet. Then we go across the top where the trees are, and we're going to expand the front, I call it the front beach, but it's now called the South Beach. The South Beach into the parking lot area by 5 feet. And then still have parking stalls facing towards the water.
So you're moving the beach into the parking lot?
Right, we're
Right.
making the beach
Bigger.
wider, larger into the parking lot.
Okay,
The beach
okay.
now is 70 feet from the curb to the high water mark.
Mhm.
And so now it'll be 75 feet
Okay.
at the top area.
Is there a berm between the parking and the
We'll
beach?
get to it.
We'll get to the berms. So I just want to give you the layout first. And then if you go over further, that's the dark dotted line. Then the beach house and the bathroom and the gazebo the gazebo is where it is staying where it is. And then we'll get into the design of the community space and the rental space and whatever else, and the bathrooms and all that. Then if you take a right and go the other way towards the west beach, which was known as the back beach, that beach is going to be expanded by 18 feet.
What?
18 feet. So we'll get
Into the
more
parking lot.
Yeah,
towards the parking lot.
correct.
So they have had to reduce the number of parking stalls, 31 spaces. So if we can keep the parking stalls the same existing size, which is 8.5 by 18, that'll be a plus. If we have to go down to make them larger, or lose the 31 spaces, we'll have 194 spaces as opposed to 225 spaces. And that's one of the variances that we would need, is to keep the parking stalls the same as they are today, because P&Z has made parking stalls larger. So we have to go for a variance to try and keep these stalls the same and try and keep by getting less parking spaces. So we go along that way, and that opens up to 18 feet, because at high tide, if you're all down there, you know there's about this much space at a real high tide on the sand in a couple of, at that curve area. So we talked about that, and that's there. Then they want to plant some trees along that West Beach, but we haven't gotten there yet,
Yeah,
really.
no, I don't think
We haven't gotten
that,
there.
that's in the picture, but yeah.
And we talked about the boat ramp, and the Dan Briggs is the Weston and Sampson. He's going to be working with DEP this week, because we had the meeting last week, so it would be this week's meeting. And he said that he would be looking to get what exactly we need, how long it will take, and where we stand with that. So that's the parking area. I think I covered everything there.
What are the two colors in the parking area?
The two these here, the pink.
Yeah.
No, this is all, the whole parking lot is open to everybody. And these are just where the parking stalls are.
Possibly pavers, I'm not sure.
We're not
We
sure.
haven't really talked
We
about
haven't
that.
really gotten into the landscaping of this. This is the newest one. Like I said, we've had probably 7 or 8 versions of all this. So I think that's about, we're gonna put a fence all the way down from the picnic area right down to the gatehouse. But there is an open gate there. And according to Dan Biggs, we may have to keep that. I'm not sure really why.
Because the fire
it was the fire
department needs to
department.
be able to come around and loop, and that's
Right,
that's
but the
a
fire
hard stop.
Well, the fire department does it now. They do that whole loop now, and they go out over by the gatehouse.
Yeah, they do.
I
but
know
how-
what he said, but I have to.
Well, we're changing the parking, but go
So
ahead.
maybe if we're changing the parking, that parking area over there goes closer over.
It might get tighter, yeah.
Cheryl, there wasn't a color key on the drawing, so where are the current buildings versus the proposed?
The building or the parking area?
What you're,
Building.
Okay, I'm gonna get to the building
Could you
here.
explain the color code? What's the orange and the tan?
Oh, the orange is the existing, I'm gonna assume it's the existing building. And then the tan is the second story, I would say, with the overhang.
yeah, I don't know, yeah. What does
Don't
it
know.
say? I can't see from here, but there's a,
I know,
When you see the next couple
I've
of
seen it.
pages.
that's
you'll
why I asked
understand.
the question.
Well, I think they just made that to show, this says new refurbished,
yes, that's a new building,
refurbished
yes.
park
Okay.
building
Great.
with outdoor shower and
Yeah,
facility.
dark
Okay,
is it?
so the lighter
I don't
one
know why the
is the
Yeah, right.
original,
Okay,
okay, and then the darker one, like I said, is
Great,
probably
thank
the
you.
new. Of course, it would help if I read the diagram. Okay, so that's basically the parking area. You got it? So now we go on to the first and second floor plans. The men's and women's room will be downstairs where they are now, but they will be made slightly smaller. We have 2 stalls and a handicapped stall, 2 sinks in the women's room, 2 urinals and a stall and 2 sinks in the men's room. It has been discussed that we may put a changing room in there instead of, 1 stall.
What about showers?
The showers will be on the outside of the building when we get to the diagram of that. The other building will be approximately the same size. And it'll have the lifeguards, and it's called storage area, and it'll have a first aid area, and it will have a vestibule going in down here on the bottom, kind of sort of like a little vestibule, and then on the left is storage, and on the right will be an elevator. There will be doors opened on each side so that the lifeguards can see front beach, west beach, and south beach.
Cheryl, can I ask you a question on that? That you may or may not know, but just while we're saying that. So you said the storage,
It's all
the
storage.
lifeguard storage, but then you just made a comment about the lifeguards being able to see from there. Is that what you just said?
Yes, the doors will be open.
And
This
you're
will be
wondering
where
why
it's-
they're not out on the beach?
No, that's not my question at all. They are on the beach.
Come on,
but
we're
when
on
they
the
take,
beach.
no. My question is, when they take a break, the plan is for them to be able to sit in that area, like they have an indoor spot to sit right now.
Right.
I'm just wondering down the line, this is gonna be a question probably for you as well, is if when FEMA looks at this and we're talking about it as storage, if they're gonna consider people sitting in there, even though that they're lifeguards, if that's gonna be an issue.
Well, Patty, we had talked about that a little bit at the last meeting, because I think they named it, in one of the last couple of plans, it was lifeguard area. And specific storage area, lifeguard area, first aid area. But I think now with the flooding situation and being in the setback area, I think that FEMA it's better if they call it storage. But personally, in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, I think that there still should be chairs in there for the lifeguards to sit in there. Otherwise, they're going to be upstairs. So, but we haven't really finalized that, and we didn't really expand on it that much.
Okay.
Mike, am I on the same page?
Yeah, may I?
Mhm.
Yeah, so, in the prior iterations, where we had kind of multi-purpose storage and usable space, those iterations had us repurposing the existing structures. So to Cheryl's point, we've gone through a number of iterations. Earlier iterations had us preserving the existing two buildings and then kind of building above the existing two buildings. When we were, with that scenario where we were preserving the existing two buildings, we could use that space below the elevated structure for folks to sit and spend time. With the newest design, with the new elevated structure separating the bathhouse, the toilet facilities from the other structures, that structure now below the elevated building is purely for storage. So that's kind of what defines the change in the way we were thinking in terms of the use for that space. So FEMA basically says you can have a structure below an elevated building in a VE zone, but it can only be used for storage.
Because of the breakaway walls?
Yes, exactly right. So, they'll use the term habitable, so it cannot be habitable. So, our intent for that space would be purely for storage at this stage. Now, just one other point, we've, as you look through this later on, you'll see in the elevations there's a space kind of behind the building, at the back of the building, kind of adjacent to the water. You'll see at the moment in the drawing, the architect kind of inserted some kayak racks. And one thought is potentially, because we had some discussion around whether it made sense to have kayaks in that space. So another scenario potentially is to not have those kayak racks there, and potentially then have a place for lifeguards to kind of sit and take a rest when they're taking their breaks. And that'll also give them the benefit of actually being able to see the beach as well from there. But the important point here is that with this newest schematic and plan, to be fully FEMA compliant, that space cannot be habitable, can only be used for storage.
Thank you, Mike. I haven't seen anything in writing yet from FEMA. So this is, I'm assuming that the architect has talked to FEMA and has come up with some sort of scenario to have this. But if we don't do the kayak storage area, like Mike said, we can put something out in that area because it's big enough to house an area for the lifeguards. These dark marks on here are all breakaway walls. the dark outlines. So that if their huge high tide comes up, then these walls will break away and the water will flow through. On the right-hand side of this page, you will see
That's the second floor.
the second floor. And there are 2 sets of stairs going up, one on the south beach and one on the west beach side. Come up the stairs, you can enter into the flexible community space room, which is approximately 22 by 25, 26. It's 652 square feet, and that includes the storage. The outside three little squares on the outside of that, the 2 in the back and the 1 on the side, I'll show you pictures of those. Those are going to be like a garage door, but it's going to be windows, so that it'll go up and then it'll be all open for air and
The view.
the view. Around the whole building is the deck. The outside line is the deck for sitting out there and enjoying the view. Then we have the mechanical storage upstairs, and we have a unisex bathroom upstairs. And then, of course, there's that vestibule and then the elevator. And then all the way over on the right-hand side is the concession stand. And on that, to get food from the concession stand, there's an open window there. So that's where you get your hot dogs and hamburgers or whatever. And then there's a doorway, and it can go into the concession stand from the community space. When people rent the community space, they can use the kitchen, or the concession stand. So are there any questions on this page so far?
Can I just ask one? You said that there are breakaway doors downstairs. So why do we have 2 sets of doors if they're not going to be able to be in there? It's just going to be storage. So there are doors on either side,
Yeah,
right?
so we can have access to whatever's stored down there from both sides.
Both sides.
Right now, that space is shared by the lifeguards. There's the police department keeps material down there as well. Historically, they've had a space down there. They keep space down there. Would be potentially storage for first aid equipment as well. So, and these plans are still kind of in the formative stage.
And Cheryl and Mike, I think at the last meeting, was Tom Bell going to be responsible for going back and being a liaison with the police department, finding out if indeed they really do need that storage space?
Yes.
And if not, that
Pam
can
and
open up
Tom, I think it was Tom and
changes.
Pam that we're gonna
Okay.
go back in and find out if they actually do need that, because some of us have looked at it, and the stuff they have in there, it doesn't look like it's a major catastrophe if they don't have the room, but they have to decide that.
Quick question, just over in our corner. Can you technically describe how the breakaway walls or doors work? What?
Not in a definitive sense, because it's still being sorted through. But one example of it could be some form of lattice structure, as an example, some tight lattice. In part would be you want whatever's stored there to have some level of protection as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's various different ways in which I think the architects are still kind of working through that. So I think the answer at this stage is no. But in terms of functionally how they would work in a high tide situation, if we have a 15-foot tide as an example, those would just, FEMA requires basically
So
that.
something with holes in it that allows the
Not
water to
necessarily,
pass?
but structurally, the way it's actually constructed, it's not going to be cinder block. It wouldn't necessarily be something that's designed to withstand a high tide situation or a high velocity wind situation. So it would be constructed in such a way where if those waves are flowing through, it's essentially going to just get washed away and allow the water to flow through. And that is in compliance. FEMA requires that
So
any
the exact
structure.
material hasn't been...
Correct. The
Determined,
material, both the
Okay.
material and the kind of construction technique is still to be
And
defined.
what happens
Got it.
to the second floor at that point?
Well, the second floor is constructed independently So it's either on pilings or it's on, it's kind of, it has its own kind of integral construction that's separate from anything below it. And of course, that has to be designed to withstand, those types of circumstances. But just back to my earlier point, FEMA requires that any structure below an elevated structure cannot act as an impediment. So once again, in the event of a high tide situation or flood situation, kind of that constitutes a 15-foot flood, the water has to have the ability to flow under any compliant FEMA elevated structures unimpeded.
What happens to the elevator in that case?
Yeah, so that's still being sorted out, and the structure surrounding the elevator would have to have the ability to withstand any, those circumstances, and that's still being sorted out.
And that's why I think we put it inside another room, like the little vestibule that Neil Huck, the architect, mentioned. And one of the other drawings, the entranceway was outside. So this is a little bit more protected.
And in an event, the elevator would be left on the second floor. It wouldn't automatically be on the bottom.
I mean, the elevator will always return to the upper level.
Yes.
For that.
Is there an estimate yet on the cost of this construction?
No.
Not yet.
You don't think it's great?
We're getting there.
Is it being considered if this is economically,
What, Bill?
is this, in your discussions with everything that's going on here, is it any parameters about, is this gonna make sense financially to spend X amount of money for the benefit of a certain amount of people that might be able to park at this place?
We have asked the architect to kind of give us a ballpark figure, and we're waiting for that to come back. At this point, we haven't really gotten to the nitty-gritty of it's going to be, this material and made out of that and made out of this and that and the other thing, so that you don't know. Some of it we do know, some of it we don't know.
Do we expect to get a square foot financial figure this week?
That's what Neil Huck said, that he would do it
Soon.
and have it back
Okay.
to
Yeah, I
us.
thought we were gonna get it on Friday.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten it yet.
Personally, I've cautioned the architect to provide a number when he has a high level of confidence in a number. I mean, I think the dangerous situation for us would be to start having kind of a number emerge in advance of because we're pushing them for a number in advance of really having enough detail to really have high confidence in the number. So
We don't want,
we're eager to see a number, but not the wrong number.
Yeah, I can understand being very cautious on that. It all, if you gave us a number today, let's just say $5,000. By the time we get ready to build it and put the shovel in the ground, the way the economy is going and building materials, it could be $10,000. So if you say $5,000, as we all know how that goes, and when other projects that we've done in town and they haven't come in, well, somebody said it was only going to be this, and now it's that, and material prices keep going up. So we are very cautious on that.
Can I say this, Bill? I do think that as being designed, they are thinking about that. And as the design has been honed down, it is shrunk.
Yeah.
The decking and they really have tried very hard to stay within pretty much the footprint of the existing buildings. So in that respect, I think they definitely have.
On another item here, you mentioned the beach is going to be moved into the parking lot with the South Beach now, about 5 feet, is that?
Mm-hmm.
And the West Side Beach, 18 feet, is
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yes.
Was it ever discussed, instead of moving into the parking lot, putting more sand out into the water?
No, we haven't discussed that, but we have, there's no way that with the tides and the way they flow, if you put sand out there, it's only going to high tide's gonna wash it back up.
You have no control over it.
So we have no
once it's
control
out there.
over that, the way the tide and the moons and everything else go. All right, so on the next page,
It was briefly discussed, we
Because
touched on
if
that.
it's gonna continue happening, then you're gonna end up, in what, 10 years from now, you're gonna move it another 5 feet? I mean,
I hope not.
we hope not, but
What, I'm not going through this
you've
again.
lived
Well,
in
let's
town.
get- when we get to the next discussion
Okay.
about the
Okay.
landscape, not just the
Well,
landscaping, but
Yeah.
we haven't talked about, obviously, any dunes. So when we get to that, I think it's gonna explain a little bit
Right.
more of the rationale of why
Can
of
I just
taking
ask
that.
one question, since
Mhm.
you're going down the financial path?
That's not my main concern.
No,
It's a
the,
concern.
so, and I really appreciate how much you have been listening to the neighbors and really trying to, you know, obviously Parks and Rec Commission gives you your marching orders. It may not always be what you three agree with, but that's, they give you the marching orders and you all are working towards a goal of trying to, you know, get the best thing out there, you know, at an affordable price that is not so dramatically changing the landscape out there, that's environmentally safe, et cetera. The financial question that is sticking in my head that's kind of separate from the design of it or the cost of the sand is I feel like I recall Tom Bell talking about when they put the pilings in at the boat club for that front area after Sandy. And somewhere, I don't know, I heard the number 300,000 just to do that. And so I don't know if that falls under, if that's part of the, you know, we only have $100,000 to do a renovation. That's what I'm trying to get my head around. If we're putting down pilings to do, I like the idea of decking towards the front, you know, of across from Norotan Heights area and more decking out there would be nice. But if we're putting down pilings and if it was to cost that much, I'm trying to figure out how we make that happen. So I don't,
Well, pilings, which pilings are you talking about?
they had to put down pilings when they were doing the.
Right,
the
so now,
front
but
of
now
the
you're
boat club.
talking
Oh, the
about,
front of the boat club,
And
the
so-
deck
yes.
of the boat
Yeah,
club.
so I
Okay,
wasn't
so that
really-
went down.
Yeah,
They
so
had-
you just said, somebody here today, just a little while ago, talked about possibly putting down pilings, and is that, are those
that's gonna
pilings
hold up the
for the
building.
deck? Yeah.
Well,
Towards
Yeah,
the
if you
front.
go back,
He was talking about pilings supporting the second floor.
correct, yeah.
Right,
And
if you
and just
go
to kind
back
of point
to
out that
this-
that
The
second
building
floor
on
is
the whole.
independent from the
Yeah.
lower level.
But
if you,
those,
Okay.
if you see these little circles on this drawing, those are like stanchions, pilings, if you wanna call them pilings. Pilings is really the wrong word to use, because pilings really is for the boat docks and things like that. So these are like long poles that will hold up the second floor.
Are they driven into the ground?
Yes.
They're gonna have to be, yes.
So
To
they are
hold
pilings.
So,
Yes.
sure, well, they're like a
And they are
piling. To me, a
pilings.
piling is something that holds up a dock or whatever.
May I?
So you're
Yeah.
talking about, are you talking about, this, or are you talking about the ones that are going around the gazebo?
I just heard the word pilings and I was really trying
You
to
meant the buildings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe-
drill down on
Building.
where they were, whether it was the building or whether it was the deck. And is it in the sand, is it going out into the water, is it going under the bedrock?
Well, maybe if I, without answering the question directly, let me try this. So from in terms of the financials of what we're doing here, and this might help clarify something, FEMA has what's called the 50% rule. So, and that 50% rule applies to any alterations you make to an existing structure within a VE 15 zone. So the VE 15 zone means the 15 applies to base flood elevation, so FEMA kind of characterizes different areas in different ways. So basically, that beach that we're talking about, FEMA has characterized it as a VE 15 zone, which means in a 100-year storm, you have to prepare for the fact that you could have sea level rise, tidal rise of 15 foot, which means if you're going to build in that zone, you've got to build the first habitable floor 2 feet above the 15, so you're talking about level 17. So that's one aspect of it. I apologize for getting a little too detailed here, but What they also indicate is if you're modifying an existing structure within a VE 15 zone, you're only allowed to make improvements up to 50% of the appraised value of the structure. So we've spoken with the town appraiser, and those two structures with the little canopies on them, the bathhouse and the concession, have an appraised value of roughly just under $200,000.
Total?
Total.
Okay.
Total, which means if we're touching those structures, was separate from building anything new. If we're touching those structures, we only have a bucket of money equivalent to $100,000 to make any modifications to those structures.
To both of them.
To both of them, right? And so, and within the current plan that you have in front of you, at the moment, the road we're going down is we're going to demolish the concession stand. We're going to get rid of that, and we're just going to make modification to the existing bathhouse. And in fact, the modification we're going to make to the existing bathhouse is to make it even a bit smaller to minimize the footprint, and that's in the site. And so essentially what we're hoping, still to be confirmed, is that FEMA will allow us to take that 50%, which is $100,000, and spend that on an improvement to that bathhouse. That's part A. So that's the 100,000 I think maybe Patty you were referencing.
Okay.
So the tear down would no longer be subject to the $100,000 rule.
Right, but
Right.
basically the tear down is
Yes.
part of the improvement, and we have $100,000 for the improvement. So whatever it costs us to do the tear down will come out of that bucket.
You mean the tear down, you mean you're talking about
The concession.
Confused.
Oh, okay, all right then.
So we're going to make an improvement on those two buildings. This is the current plan.
Is the whole project subject to the $100,000 rule at the moment?
No, that's why I was suggesting, what I just described to you is
Just the bathroom.
part A, which is the working with the existing structures. Part B is the elevated structure. There is no limit. As long as you are
Okay.
FEMA compliant, FEMA tells you you can spend
limit, okay.
however much money you're able to spend within the
Okay.
constraints of wherever you're doing it.
Thank you.
So the only limitation on the only FEMA limitation applies to modification of existing structures within a VE
Okay,
15 zone.
sorry, I was confused.
Yeah, no. It's a
That
little
would-
confusing.
That's helpful, because
Yeah.
even as you're sitting here and you're watching it on Channel 79, you're attending the meetings, now you really, really defined it, so thank you.
So if this building that exists presently, we had a hurricane next week and it destroyed those buildings, you could not rebuild them just as they were. Is that correct?
I believe that's
Yeah.
accurate.
You can't,
No.
even if it's 100 or two, in the 200,000.
Because they're not FEMA compliant and they're in a VE 15 zone.
Now, why is FEMA so concerned about a cinder block bathroom?
Now you're asking me stuff above my pay grade.
I got you.
But I would say we're concerned about it because I think for this project, for the benefit of the town, it's critically important to have restrooms at ground level.
That I agree with you,
Yeah.
but I don't understand if that's all we wanted were restrooms, why we have to through all this and limit the amount of money we can spend on a simple
Yeah.
room that's no bigger than this room.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting into territory now.
Do they
that's-
insure this, FEMA, or do they guarantee replacement costs of it or something?
I think the town can avail itself of the FEMA insurance program, but once again, it's not as though,
Could the town say they don't want to get the FEMA?
we could, but that won't make a difference in terms of FEMA requiring, kind of applying those rules to us. Now, one thing we've heard, although, this, it's nothing that we're taking into consideration because our goal is to be fully FEMA compliant, is let's take a hypothetical town, not us, in a hypothetical town, if in Connecticut. Now, I don't know if this is entirely accurate, but just to kind of share some of the information we've learned along the way here. If, I guess theoretically, you could have a scenario in a hypothetical town where the town makes a determination that it's going to opt out of the FEMA insurance program, it's not taking state money, and it does what it wants to do. But FEMA significantly frowns on any types of variances from the FEMA requirements and regulations. Certainly than the state of Connecticut. I think they do that, they frown on it federally, so they're strongly against, allowing municipalities to do things that go beyond the bounds of the FEMA requirements. So I guess the hypothetical is, theoretically, you could probably try to do something, but you're probably gonna meet a lot of resistance, and it's just not something that we're interested in trying to do. Our goal is to just really be kind of, whatever we're doing, due to the letter of the regulations.
Okay.
Okay.
See how we're going with this, see what it.
Thank you.
Okay, on the next page,
You need to show them all, but
well,
it's,
I know. On the next page are those garage type
Right.
windows that I had talked about. Okay, so that's what they look like. The next page is just the siding. Some of it's gonna be shiplap and some of it is gonna be shingle. I'll get to that later. The next page is the size comparison. The shaded area, the lines going crosswise, is the existing 2 buildings. And then, you understand? So these are the existing buildings. Then the dotted line or the square line down below, rather, is the bathroom on the bottom of the page. And then above is going to be the new building, so you can see the size of it on each side, and then the decking around it with the stairs.
So there'll still be 2 buildings.
Yes,
yeah.
yes, there will
And
be
in
two
fact, they
buildings.
need to be 5
5
feet apart. Yeah.
Right.
On the first ground floor.
Right, between the 2 buildings, there's a 5-foot rule in P and Z, so they have to be 5 feet apart. So they're 5 feet apart, but I think by making the bathroom area smaller, they'll probably be a little bit farther apart, maybe 6. On the next page, and I put mine in yellow, that's the 40-foot setback line as it exists today. The whole thing is in the flood zone on the survey map, but we're having a new survey map done, so I didn't bring up that with me. So this is the 40-foot setback. You can see where it goes partially through the concession stand and then to a point, and then back down a little bit, and then in front of the gazebo, and then over towards the beach, South Beach.
Sorry, it's 40 feet from what?
Mean
mean
high
high
water.
Mean high water mark line.
That's what it's required.
So this is why we have to go to ZBA to get, to be able to permit to be able to build this in
Because it's
all
all-
in the 40-foot setback.
Crosses over the.
Right, it goes into the 40-foot setback line.
As does the existing building,
Right,
by the
so that,
way. And the gazebo.
and the gazebo's in
Yeah.
there too. Now, let's just look at the gazebo for a second. We haven't finalized anything on the gazebo, but if you're familiar with the gazebo, you'll know that there's a set of stairs that are cement stairs going up that are kind of steep. In this drawing, they've taken the stairs out on that side, and we put them over on the left-hand side in front of the big tree that's there.
Yeah,
And then that will go up, and that decking there that looks out to the south side will be even with the gazebo. So you'll be able to get from the gazebo right out onto that deck in this area. On the other side, you'll have a ramp going up. The ramp is 5 feet high at the top, and it's 30 feet long to another decking, and then another ramp 30 feet long to get up to that and then go into the gazebo. I have a different view on that, but I haven't shared it with the building committee yet, so I'm not gonna discuss it here.
We haven't visited that lately.
We
have
haven't talked about that lately, so I think I'm just gonna leave it as it is. The 3 trees will remain, and they will, because of that, they provide such great shade for the gazebo.
They'll die, eventually.
So, that's the gazebo, like, On the next page, you have the south elevation, which is basically looking from the gazebo onto the building, because that's the best way I can explain it. The blue building with the W on it is your bathrooms. They have a grass roof or some kind of greenery. We haven't discussed what it would be. And in that grass roof, they have 6, I counted them the other night, 6 round skylights. And that'll give light into the both bathrooms. It looks like the stairs are connected to that building, but they're not from the backside. Then, as you can see, the stairs go up, and then that's on the top level is one of those folding up doors. The peak at the right-hand side is 17 feet above the bottom floor. And the peak at the other end is 21 feet. They have a kayak racks there, but we talked about this, and since there's no launching of the kayaks into the swimming area, it makes no sense to have them there and then schlep them all the way down the beach to where you can
I mean,
launch them.
they're for private individuals.
Darien
owned,
residents.
Residents
So
owned.
that's not likely to happen
So,
there.
Yeah.
right,
There's
so
not
we-
enough area, only.
No, that's what we were
couple
discussing
dozen.
earlier, probably that will be a
that's probably
perhaps
gonna
the lifeguard area.
eliminate and maybe have a lifeguard area like we said.
And possibly a changing area, yes. we're
And
talking about.
then they also discussed possibly a portable changing area instead of taking out one of the stalls in the bathrooms and do a portable changing area there. The roof will be a metal roof, and like I said, the top part would be shingles, natural shingles, and the bottom part will be natural colored shiplap
In the building.
on the building, right. And then they had suggested blue brick for the bathroom and blue brick for the elevator shaft, which is a long shaft going up. The next one is the east side of the building, which is practically self-explanatory. Then we have
That's the best one.
the north side of the building, which basically faces the west beach. I'll never get that straight. The west beach. So there you can see the doors that are lead into the lifeguard area or the storage area. You can see the window upstairs where the concession stand is going to be available, the door into the flexible space, and then the decking around it.
I like that shape of the building. It looks like a lifeguard station down in Florida or in Southern California. They look just that same shape with the roof
This-
angling up.
Yeah.
Same thing.
And then the other side is the west elevation where it's like the back of it, and you can see where the kayak, the orange, yellow, red kayak are stationed, but I think
The
they're gonna-
non-kayak.
The
Design
non-kayak
kayak,
area.
yeah.
The
Are those
non-kayak
the
area.
garage doors on the west side,
Yes,
facing the sunset,
yes.
not facing the sun?
Both
No.
ways.
What is the sound?
This is
Oh,
this is the west side, so that you would be looking over at the Norotan Yacht
At the
Club.
yacht club.
And what faces the sun again?
Same thing.
Another.
Yeah.
Another
Right.
set of
Yeah.
garage
Both of
doors,
those.
right.
Glass
Thank you.
garage doors on
On
both
it,
sides.
see, you can see this little point sticking out,
Yeah.
that would be the south side. Okay, so then we had kind of a three-dimensional area, which is given you the three-quarter view.
Yeah.
On this view, where there's a brown, looks like a bench downstairs by the blue brick, that's gonna be a bench, and that's where the outside showers are going to be. They will be like freestanding showers with a shower head and a foot shower, which is nice to have. And then that will be all pavers or paved area so that people can put their shoes on and not get back in the sand.
It's nice.
So, and that's the rear view. So that's it, my friends.
the non-kayak trail.
So that's it for the building. We mentioned that we weren't, that the landscaping wasn't,
Finished yet.
yeah, exactly, but we have discussed the dunes.
Dunes.
Okay?
The shores, I believe.
Yeah, it is, thanks. And there was a lot of pushback on dunes. A lot of people don't like dunes. A lot of people like to sit and look at the water, and they're worried about the dunes being in there. I think by the meeting before last, Cheryl, we started discussing the possibility of taking that area that they added to the beach and putting some vegetation in to hold the sand
Right. We had talked about putting
without putting a dune in.
a sidewalk all the way around, but then from the boat club area down this west beach, and then all the way over on the south beach to the picnic area, because as you all know, when you park your car, you're right there on the sand. I mean, there is a curb there. So I had suggested maybe, and it was brought up a couple of times before, that we put a sidewalk, a 5-foot sidewalk there, which would act as a buffer between the sand and the parked car. And with expanding the beach in the front 5 feet and back west 18 feet, it would get to be too much. So we took a vote and it did not pass.
Because you'd be
So-
taking away
More
more
space
space
from
from
the
the beach,
beach.
and you can just walk.
Right, so now, then we talked about the berms, and a lot of people are very upset to have the berms and have it look like it does at Weed Beach with the high grasses. So if you put a 3-foot berm and a 3-foot grasses, it went up to 6 feet. So the committee decided that the berms were going to go away for now, expand the beach because it was more important to have more sand and more beach area at this point than have berms, and maybe do low grasses of some sort. Nothing that's going to go 3 feet, like a 2-foot. Well, it's not on this pattern. It's
Yeah,
on one of
it's
our
on
others.
previous ones, yeah.
Previous ones, they
lots of
showed us
ones,
different
yeah.
kinds of grasses, bush type things that grow in sand and on beaches and things. So we're still discussing that, and we're hoping that that will be the way to go, because everybody is very concerned about sitting in their cars that we've talked to. I've talked to people. There's been petitions going around with over 200 signatures for no berms, and it's an issue. And so that's what we're hoping for. And then we also felt that in time, if in fact this all doesn't work and it still floods, that there's enough area to put berms in. But right now, they're gone, hopefully.
They're gone.
They're gone.
When you say we, is this a separate committee that you're on?
I'm on the building committee.
Oh, you're on the building.
Right,
That's why she's leading the charge here.
right. So,
But Cheryl, can you also explain to her that, again, that you'll take your marching orders from the Parks and Rec Commission?
well,
Yeah,
the
that's
commission
what
gave us our charge.
Yes.
Right. But we do
They do
have
a lot
some,
of hard work.
yeah, and I
Or
think
deep
that,
diving into it, but they have to follow some
right,
of
but
what
we have to
those
follow
guys are
some
going
of their, their rules, their expectations on this whole thing too. But I think as we go along, we go back to the commission and we tell them, at this point that we have decided that the berms are gone. I mean, Wednesday night is the meeting, correct, Mike?
Yes.
Yeah. And see what they have to say. Hopefully they will agree with us, because I think that we're getting 18 feet more beach. It's a trade-off.
Will
It's
the
much
parking lot
nicer.
be raised?
No,
No.
no. The parking lot will stay. There's no way we can raise the parking lot. As far as the boat ramp goes, like I said, they're gonna be talking to the DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers, and that's all gonna have to be all dug out and I believe both sides replaced and the whole pitch replaced.
As well as dredging.
Yes, and then we're gonna be dredging. We'll have to dredge there too.
At some point, I would love to know the background on why that was installed improperly. I know that we don't know it, but if anybody can
I
do
don't
some
know
due
it either,
diligence.
but it really doesn't matter. The proper one should be installed,
100%.
considering all the boats that are
Sure,
in the boat
Right.
club.
just wanna
et
make
cetera.
sure we
So
don't
that part
do this.
of all this, I personally agree with.
agree, but I just wanna
But
make sure
there's stuff
we learn
about-
from what was done incorrectly, so we make sure it's done right.
Well, it was dredged 6 feet, and there was 1,600 cubic yards of sediment taken out and removed from that area. I think from what I can remember, is it was basically dug out and then just replaced. So the pitch was the same as it was for years. And I think over the years, things settle, they shift in the water and stuff. So I think maybe over time, something like that may have happened.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's what happened.
Sure.
I'm saying that's my
Makes sense.
opinion.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So I hope I'm doing a good job on this thing.
You're doing a great job. It's
Thank
hard
you,
to
Cheryl.
do. And
Thank you.
just before you ask that question, Bill, just as a reminder of what the commission voted on that the building committee was supposed to do, is they asked for an elevated new structure. They asked for some flexible space with a concession stand.
Yes.
But
But-
and an integration of the gazebo with decks, was putting decks around the
Kind of,
gazebo.
right.
So
But it was also, the RFP also went out for a new or a renovated building. So that's what the RFP said. And that's, in a way, we haven't really seen a renovated structure of the concession stand area. So that's what we're kind of sort of waiting for too. Hopefully.
And actually, we saw it at the beginning of
We
this
saw it
this
as-
process.
We saw it way back at the beginning.
Yeah, we
But
did.
it wasn't, in my opinion,
It
we're at
wasn't-
this
it wasn't as
point,
detailed
it
as
wasn't as
this. Yes,
detailed,
I
it
think
wasn't,
that's fair
there's
to
no,
say.
and on this plan, we still don't have the measurements for the deck. So the last, 2 weeks ago, I was down there with my measuring tape, and the deck on the last plan was 10 feet over towards the south and 5 feet hangover on the west beach, no, on the north side. And then this side, we never really figured out but there's no measurements here, so it's a little difficult to say it's 9 by 12. I don't
think it exactly is yet. We don't know
No,
that we know, but
because
Mike.
Sometimes
you
it's
help
squared,
there?
sometimes it's a squared off deck, and then sometimes it has more of a point over on this side where it will be more towards out of the 40-foot setback, and then it goes back into the setback.
So I think that in
so
this latest iteration, it's the pointed one that you're talking about.
Right,
Yeah.
so this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
what we have, this is what the committee voted on the other night, 5-2, to move forward with this design and to go to ZBA and see if we can get the variance for the parking lot and the building.
And just out of curiosity, the two who voted against, what were their reasons?
I voted against, and my reason was because I'm finding a hard time justifying for this flexible space.
Thank you.
Number one. Number two, having the concession stand upstairs on the second floor. And number three, which is, if you have the flexible space, you have to have an elevator. Because we did have we had plans before with ramps going all the way around and connecting the gazebo and back and forth. And so my concern was the second story and not having, I don't have a justification for this flexible space yet. I don't see that Pam Geary, the Director of Park and Rec, states that, the paddle hut over there is small and it basically doesn't have storage. So, she thinks that this is a better view.
You're talking about Weed Beach.
Sorry, the
Yeah.
Paddle Hut at Wee Beach.
Right.
And that here we have a better view of the water and the boats and everything.
It's significantly smaller.
And it is,
This is.
this is gonna be, yes, this is gonna be smaller, but they're saying approximately maximum 30 people.
But it's going to be year-round too. They
Yeah, oh,
voted-
yeah.
They voted that it would be.
So it has heat.
right?
It's going to be heated. We
The
don't
Parks,
think it
the
needs
Parks
to-
and Rec Maintenance Department asked that it be heated. The maintenance.
So groups could conceivably rent it out all year
Yes,
round?
this
Would
is
it be
what
a
it's
source
for.
of revenue for the town, or is it a free rental if you live in Darien?
No, it's a rental.
No, it's a rental. You have to
That's
rent.
part of the driving
At
force.
the,
Okay.
at
Okay.
the
Got it.
Paddle Hut over at Weed, it's $100 an hour to rent it with a minimum of 3 hours. So it's $300. And, yes, it's gonna be rented, except for June, July, and August. It will not be rented because
During the
that's when
season.
the
Sure.
residents have to have a pass to get into the,
High season. Yes.
so it won't be
Okay,
rented
Bill.
then.
Okay.
As someone who is in the real estate business, does $300 or $100 an hour justify the cost to build this? Do you break even anywhere, or is this just a one-time let her rip and put it up there?
Well, I think you've just given the reason why that flexible space is really not, the main purpose is not to rent it. It's a pretty good thing for it. It's for the enjoyment of the town.
Mhm.
They said that, you could go up there and have, like in the fall on a cool day, you could go up there and have a cup of coffee, sit out on the patio if it's not in the sun. In the wintertime, I think Pam sees it as being a rentable space and,
Program.
and programs up there of some sort. And the doors will be, down and it would be heated. And the bathrooms downstairs will also be heated. So they will be open all year long too.
Is the only entrance to the flexible space through the garage door?
No, that's not the entrance.
No,
That's not the entrance. The entrance, there's stairs taking you up and there are doors. Yeah.
yeah, but he's talking about
With
getting into.
swinging door
Here.
or something?
No.
They're real doors.
There's a regular door there. There's a door there on that side, and then you go through this little vestibule here, and there's a door there by the elevator. So if you came up the elevator, you could go in that way too.
Whose idea was this, or what group got the Park and Rec Commission to put this forward? I mean, did the people in the town all rise up and say, we want something here, or is this something that someone thought would be a nice idea?
Well, that's a loaded question.
It is.
We can answer that.
I mean,
I'm gonna say this, and Mike can correct me. Every 10 years, as you all know, we have a master plan for Park and Rec. And we also have one for planning and zoning. And it's a wish list of what it is, in my opinion, of things that can be done in all our parks, the Park and Rec plan. And in the master plan, there was surveys done. And they were not sent out as a whole town survey. It was never done that way.
It was a statistically significant survey done by an independent.
Yes, and some of the surveys were printed up on paper. They were at the library, the senior
bias.
center, and at the town
Well,
hall.
if you read what it says in the master plan, it tells you, if you can open it up, it tells you exactly how the surveys were sent. Okay?
So the surveys were sent out, and then there was 3,000 sent out to Park and Rec. The Park and Rec sent out.
Where's the thing?
The Park and Rec
I
sent
don't
out
remember.
to their, maybe you can find it, to people that they had email list of. I would say that. That's the way to say it, right? So that was sent out. Then there was a survey on the internet, on the Park and Rec page or homepage, and you could fill out that survey also.
On the town homepage.
Website, right?
Open to the entire town.
That was
Exactly.
open.
The interesting thing about those surveys is that they're actually those that were strategically sent, in other words, just that they randomly picked a certain number of survey of names and sent them to those households. And then there were everybody else that wanted to fill them out could fill them out, you know, and they were in all the different places where, essentially, the statistics that they got from them were pretty close to being the same.
Right, but some of them weren't counted in at the end. They didn't, Weston and Sampson, it's in there somewhere, I remember reading it, that only 3,000 were calculated surveys into the plan or something. But that's, it's not even about the survey that much. There were a lot of,
That's a catch-all.
there were a lot of meetings that were done. There were roundtables, and it was in the paper, and it was out there a lot. It takes a long time
It was a
to
1
do.
year, sorry to
it's a
interrupt,
long
it was a
time.
1 year exercise through the year,
And
2017.
it takes a long time to write up a master plan like this, and it has a lot of information in it about our parks
Well,
and what
correct me
can.
if I'm wrong, but I think it is universally
This is
agreed upon that
what happened
some sort of
in
renovation
storm,
needs
I
to be
guess.
done at Pear Tree Place,
Yes,
correct?
yes, that's what I was.
It's
If
second
you-
on the list of the
Right.
important things to be done.
It is, and I think that when this was done, the major concerns down there were
That's the sand.
new bathrooms, new boat ramp, more trees, clean sand, and a picnic area. There were 5 things that I think in that plan that were the major things. So,
That's your list anyway.
that's my list anyway.
The
Okay.
Cheryl list.
All right, we're
But it's
past,
also a list of other
Well,
people
things
that
that
are.
needed too, exactly.
And
I
is it
think
because
that-
of the FEMA regulations that we are having issues with a one-story structure and making something really, you know, nicer or whatever on the ground level? Is that that's an obstacle?
Yeah, well,
I'm
the
assuming.
FEMA regulations limit the amount of money the town can spend on any,
Right, if we didn't
anything
have
we
the,
would do.
if we didn't have the 100,
yeah.
we were limited to the $100,000, we could knock both buildings down and put up 2 nice buildings. But we're limited on the funding. And so that's really, you know, we have
Don't you
FEMA.
think,
What are
Cheryl,
you-
don't you think, Cheryl, is every step of the way with the committee is always being a compromise or a trade-off? Largely because of the FEMA restrictions in that
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know,
we've edged forward, but it's,
we're moving
nothing's
forward,
easy.
but I just couldn't,
nothing's easy.
I just couldn't vote, because this is the plan now, and this is the one that's going forward. And in my heart and soul, and talking to people all over town, and being the person that sits at this beach day in and day out, and seeing what
As do many
goes.
people though, Cheryl, as do many people. So.
Excuse me?
I mean, as do many people
Yeah,
of all
but I mean,
different ages and.
well, I'm not saying
Yeah.
that I'm not,
Okay.
I mean, I
I
sit
know
there.
you're the queen and we're gonna name the sandwich after you, right?
Oh, please. But I'm just saying that a lot of people
Yeah.
don't go down there and then have, you know, say
Well,
what
they're
we should
missing
be
a lot
doing,
if they don't.
and they don't.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
a beautiful place.
beach.
So what does it mean that 2 voted against? Does it need to be unanimous?
No, it passed, so the
Majority.
majority,
Passed,
right, the
okay.
majority,
Majority.
five
Yeah.
people voted for it.
So what you're
And Martha Banks was the second one, and,
Yes.
you know, Martha had sat on the, Board of Finance, right, for years, and
Mhm.
so she, you know, and Martha does her due diligence, and she really wants to see, she respects how hard, you know, Mike and the whole group has worked, and she's, my takeaway was she was really trying to get her head around, this project, but she has concerns about the cost, and she has concerns about, her concern were the height, the second story, and she's kind of spending all that money in that area, so.
And her main concern is that she really wanted to see a renovated building.
Can I just, may I just add something here?
Yes,
Right?
sure.
Yeah. So just a quick thing on the renovation. So first off, the committee was formed mid-October of last year, so we've been in operation now, meeting on a cadence of roughly every 2 weeks for almost a year now. So many meetings, lots of discussions, lots of words spoken, and you know, based upon the way the vote came out, you can get a sense like, you know, it's not as though it's you know, full consensus, everybody's in lockstep and we're all moving forward. So it's been a really great, vigorous, from my perspective, deliberations. And at various points along the way, this discussion of renovate versus new has come up. And since that, those kind of direction comes from the commission, we made the decision to go back to the commission. So we had kind of a unique situation. We had a joint commission and building committee meeting back last month. So we brought the building committee and sat with the commission. And we went through a very kind of vigorous conversation around, okay, commission, you've asked for this. Here's what we've learned along the way. We've learned a lot of things since you originally kind of gave us these directions. And we want you to be aware of that and give you another chance to make this determination whether you want renovate or new. And it wasn't just it wasn't the building committee just sitting there listening. There was a dialogue, a very healthy dialogue that went on for hours. The community was with us as well in that meeting, and the commission at that stage voted for the things that we're now moving forward with. So the commission kind of essentially reasserted that they want new versus renovate. And so just to clarify to Cheryl's point about waiting for the renovation, that carries out of the barn on that. I mean, we've gone through that already, and the clear direction and the further validation of this is that the commission, which they we believe is representing the town of Darien, the entire town of Darien, has reaffirmed to the building committee to go forward with the building of an elevated structure.
Well, the commission is unelected, right?
The commission is selected.
Right,
The
we're
commission-
elected.
Okay.
They're
I'm not sure.
appointed.
Yeah.
They're appointed.
But they
We're elected.
still have to take
By
their
the
marching
town
orders
committees.
from the commission.
Right.
Yeah,
I wasn't talking about the building committee.
I'm talking
No,
about
no.
We're elected by the people.
yes.
The Parks and Rec Commission is not.
They're appointed.
They're
Right.
appointed by the
RTC.
administration.
No,
Yes.
they're
By the
RTC,
RTC and
the DTC.
And essentially the board of
Yes.
Board of Selectmen, yes.
Right.
Yes. Okay, one or two, you've asked a lot of questions. Let's go here first.
Yeah, so, I'm in Martha's, district also, and we did have a district, meeting just last month, and I mean, I'm in the same mindset where I'm having a hard time with the extra space. I'm happy that the berms are happening, cause my family boats every weekend, we trailer our boat down there, and, it's nice to be able to go down there and be able to see the boats coming in, and they're coming in, so I can get the trailer and go to the boat ramp and be ready for the boat to come. I'm thrilled that the boat ramp will be redone because it is horror. And my concern is with the parking, that it's gonna be tough. It's gonna make it tougher for boats to get into those ramps.
I know what you're saying. They try to leave the parking, not do too much with that end of it, so with that in mind. But yeah, that was when we were talking about it, that's one of those trade-offs, with
Yep.
the number of space. Because
Yeah.
you're probably not supposed to be parking there now either.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have heard from my constituents that the concerns, so.
Well, I agree with your comments. I really support what you just said.
You have another
I actually
question?
have a couple other questions too. I wasn't able to attend that last meeting. I was out of state. Did the public attend the PRC meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
What was the general reaction?
Of the public
Mhm.
at the commission meeting,
Yeah.
Comments.
the comments,
The comments come at the beginning of the meeting.
yeah.
So
They have them at
so-
the beginning of their agenda,
At
and.
the commission meeting or at the building committee meeting?
The
Commission.
building committee, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, building
At
committee.
the
I
building
thought you
committee?
might,
Yes, we have public comment at the beginning of our meeting also.
We usually have several,
There's
usually several folks
people
that
some of them
speak.
are here tonight, and some of them are different people that come at different times, and it's not always the same people at every meeting, but we always have somebody at our meeting, yes.
And how about the boat club?
The boat club, well, we have Tom Bell, who's on our building committee, so he represents the boat club.
And the harbor.
And he's the harbor
Harbor
Yes,
master.
right.
Correct, yeah. So he lets us
Would
know when
you say
when it
that
just isn't
the,
gonna happen.
Sorry?
He lets us know when it just isn't gonna happen.
Would you say that the public enthusiastically supported this plan? Mildly
Extremely
supported?
negative.
Opposed? Vigorously opposed?
I'm gonna say that the majority of the comments that we have received in written emails, letters, and in public do not support this. We have one letter of support.
That's more than that, but never mind. Go ahead.
What?
I'd like to pass this
There
around,
was another one.
just everyone look at the pictures and then.
Reese's one that was red. Yeah, Reese's one, not the one that was red. Anyway,
I just got two this week, and they were.
it was the other, I mean, I thought it was the other way. So what,
The people
we
you
have
sit
other
on the
things to
beach
get
with,
to,
are
by
they
the way,
thumbs up
folks,
or thumbs
just to
down on
remind you.
this, do you know?
This is important.
Yes, it is important, and
And
that's
why is
why
that?
I'm letting it
Is
go
just
on.
spending town money or what?
Well, the money is a concern. They think the building is too big. They don't like the idea of an elevator in a, a sandy and wet environment. They feel that, basically, we've been waiting for a long time to have clean sand, more trees, and things like that. So they want to keep it simple. It's a small beach. That's what I'm hearing.
The trees
It's a
are in the
small
works
beach,
already.
and that people want to keep
We're just
it
waiting for the tree
in this.
conservancy.
Now, you
Remember
said that the
day of
ramp
trees,
back
so
there,
there's
there
no
was a
problem.
ramp that actually
We're just
went
waiting
up,
for the rest of it to happen.
and you could access the gazebo and the deck from that ramp?
No,
No.
there
Okay,
was
then
a
I
plan
missed.
before.
One of the early plans.
One of the
did that,
earlier
yeah.
plans
Okay,
had it
I
connected.
misunderstood
Is
that,
this just
But
a
now
regular
it's-
rainstorm?
but now
When
it's
the
not.
Parking lot was flooded, or what is
No,
it?
it was,
Yes, it is.
Can I ask
Yes,
a
it
question?
is.
okay, let's keep it to
Okay.
questions, okay?
Yeah, it's just high tide.
My question is,
High
I
tide
assume
and
we're
a
gonna
full
vote
moon.
on this?
No, we're not voting on it.
Every
We're
full
just
moon, come
reviewing
down.
it, folks.
Eventually, it will come to the RTM.
Yes, yes, it will.
So
We're getting ahead of it. Thank you, Adele.
We're
You're
trying to
sharing
stay,
a lot of
and that's why,
We're not-
that's
well, I
why we've
think-
been sending you, I've been sending you these,
Plans.
plans.
I'm bringing you
I'll
up to date at every meeting.
Yeah,
So that's what we're doing.
and of course, it's
Bringing
a
you
lot,
up to date
it's a-
as to what we're going.
I'm sure that you vote
No.
No, definitely
We
not.
don't vote. When this comes to the RTM, all the permits and the variances will have been done. And what we do is we vote on the money.
Especially the elevator.
And we don't know what the money's gonna be at this
No, we
point?
don't know.
No idea.
We don't know what the money
So I'm
is.
just giving
Yeah.
you
What did everyone-
what's out there, what we've been doing.
So this is
Where we
just fun
stand.
on paper at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
If it is voted down, will there be a new?
I know, I see this all the time.
Do you think?
I would hope so.
Boating in the parking lot.
I would hope so.
Patty,
Will that be a new $100,000 plan? No, never mind.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
I know I've asked questions, sorry, but I'm just, the one thing that I have a question about is, I'm just trying to confirm this. It's a net stall loss, so it's a net loss of 31 parking spaces. So
That's right.
I have a big concern with that because I'm down at Peartree a lot as well. So if you boat or whatever, if you're down there. And I said this at a previous commission meeting and at a Parks and Rec, or a building committee meeting. I watched people get tickets a year ago, and it wasn't even 4th of July weekend. I think it was the weekend after that on July 12th, because there weren't enough lined
Right.
parking spaces. And I've always felt they could do one or two more lines where the Darien Boat Club is. They could just, well, I'm just saying, not to the right, I'm saying in my opinion, I feel like they could do a few more stripes, even if it's 3 or 4 here and 3 or 4 here to bring it out. Because people are parking there
I know.
anyway.
Right, no,
But-
we had these discussions,
Yes.
But the
Patty.
loss of parking spaces, it's not
But-
from the building, it's from the adding of the
No,
sand.
but originally when they
right?
presented it in the beginning,
Yeah.
they were losing a small amount. And then Tom Bell, who is the king down there, he completely agreed that we should not be losing it. So I guess to now see it's 31 parking spaces,
Mhm.
that's a lot. And I get that we're expanding the beach, but I'm just saying that's gonna be a problem.
That's it, there you got your trade-offs.
Yeah, to your point, the trade-offs, I mean, even if one was to keep it simple and say scrap the building,
You
knock it
taking
down,
an
have
Uber down to the
nothing,
beach though?
and may have more beach, then you're losing parking
Yeah,
spaces.
it's gonna be
Right.
tough to park.
So,
Most of the time, there are plenty of parking
There really
spaces
is.
down there. The problem is, like this past weekend when the tent was
Oh,
up
yeah.
for the boat club's lobster bake,
mhm.
then those parking spaces all down there were non-usable.
Taken up,
And then everybody came farther down. So Sunday, it was a beautiful day after the road race. The parking lot was pretty well full, and there were 7 cars with trailers down there. 4 were along the roadway, and then the rest took 2 parking spaces up.
Yeah, it's post Labor Day, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
For
it
the
is.
record, it's
You're
gonna
right.
be an issue, 31 net loss is a lot.
Yeah, we
We'd
had-
love to see that
Well, we did
reduced in some
our,
way.
We did,
the
we had
building
42
committee
at one
did
time.
work on trying to get some statistics, and it was okay, you know, it was mostly okay, better than you would have
At peak
thought.
times, is it okay to park along the road, or is
No.
that illegal?
No, you
Yeah.
can't do
No,
that.
So
No,
what do
can
you
get-
do
You
if
can
there's
get
an
2
event
spots all the way
and-
up by Pear Tree Point, right
There's a
up to the
couple-
Ring
yeah,
Mail
there are a couple
Bridge,
spots
and then
there.
that's it.
What are
Yeah,
you gonna
so
do?
anyways,
There's,
Can I ask Mike a question? I don't know if this is your area, but is there a serious problem about putting sand out into the water as opposed to using the?
Engineering
The
nightmare.
feedback that we'd gotten was
Yeah.
that that would be kind of more subject to kind of tidal activity, and anything you basically put out further as an attempt to kind of build up the beach and go out
Yeah.
is more likely to be kind of vulnerable to being washed into the sound. So if the intent is to kind of extend the size of the beach as a way of building resiliency, the place to do that would be kind of on the dry side as opposed to, I think, probably, that's, you know, we didn't explore it any further because I think the feedback that we had gotten was kind of, you know, much more of a difficult exercise.
As a kid growing up in town and going to Pear Tree Point all the time, I certainly envisioned that the beach was wider at that time from the same parking
Yeah.
point, both the front beach and the back beach. And if the tides are eroding it over all these years, it's obvious to me that it's gonna continue eroding. But if you put stuff back, maybe it'll start working on the new stuff and that you won't be losing parking space.
Well, I think Cheryl mentioned there's still further discussion with DEEP. And so, you know, we're seeking, to your point, you know, more guidance from DEEP. And we're gonna review with them the current thinking and get their best thinking on how to, how to best proceed with it. So it's a great point, I appreciate that.
Okay, I think we're just about finished with our discussion. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, so we move on to the next item. Chairman. Okay, just some updates. I know you guys, some of you would like to speak, yes?
Yeah?
I'll be more than happy to say something.
We do have, can I just say that we do have other things to talk about,
Yep.
so if you can keep it short,
Okay.
and you're still back here.
I'll give you 2 minutes, and to answer your question. the
Let's
town
make it 1
survey-
minute if you
All right,
don't
1
mind.
minute.
1 minute.
Here, this was the result of the town survey, and this is rental space down here. It was the absolute lowest priority of everyone in the town, and no one wanted it. Beaches is
Can we
the
have your,
top.
sorry,
I'll hand it
can we
around
have
to
your
you.
name, please?
Janine Hackett.
Thank you.
This was the result of the survey, what the people of the town wanted for the beach. I'll pass it up to you. It was not a rental space.
And Janine,
And
what is your address, where do you live?
112 Pear Tree Point Road.
Okay.
I
It's
cannot,
on-
I
we have
cannot
her
see the
address.
beach from my house, just so you know, because everyone thinks it's, oh, the people there are complaining because of the view. It's not, I can't see the beach from my house. The point is, we did the town survey. This town survey showed nobody wanted a rental space in Darien, yet the Parks and Recs Commission have turned this into their own mission of putting a rental space at the beach, and no one in the town wanted it. And every single meeting, you have at least a dozen or more people that speak out at, that meeting and saying, we don't want this, we don't want a rental space, renovate what's there, we agree the bathroom and concession stand need to be updated, we agree we need a boat ramp, we want new chairs, update the picnic area, or whatever you want to do. We don't need a 2-story in an elevator. Those pictures are real. Those are not fake captions. That is high tide at a full moon. That is a simple rainstorm. It is not a hurricane. If that is not a lie, come down. It's constantly under the water, and it's ridiculous to spend. They're not telling you millions of dollars to put this new structure in, and to put all of this stuff, and the pilings and the rock, to put all this decking and everything else. This is millions of dollars to put in a floodplain. And we're putting an elevator. Yeah, the elevator will be pulled up during the storm. The mechanicals are still getting wet. Talk to the people at Tokenique Club. What it costs them to maintain their elevator that gets washed out all the time. No one is discussing price. It's like, we'll figure it out later. We'll figure it out later. We have an unlimited budget. Like, no, the people in the town don't want this. Add more classrooms to the schools. They all have portable classrooms in them. Yet we're spending millions of dollars to put in a rental space. Why? Nobody wants it. And no one is listening to the town. And yes, you had one letter of support read into the record at the Parks Commission. But you've had dozens. We have surveys and petitions of hundreds of signatures from the town saying, we don't want it.
Okay,
Please
thank you.
listen to us. And I'm done.
You
I'm
reminded,
done.
that's okay, you did remind me of one thing I did want to mention, and that was that that when we were talking about some of the work that was going to be done, and with the flooding, thank you, is that there is a drain that has an issue.
Yeah.
And there is a hopefully a fix. It'll have to be cleaned out regularly, but we're hoping to do
Where's it gonna
something
drain to?
about that.
Well, there's a
the
storm
matter-
drain in the parking lot
Yes.
that at high tide, water actually comes up out of that drain and
Right.
floods the parking lot. And in fact, you've seen many pictures of flooding in the parking lot on sunny days. Well, none of that water is actually breaching the curb. It's not coming up from the beach. It's actually coming up out of the. So a lot of that water that you're seeing in many of these pictures that are circulating is because of those drains are broken. They need a check valve. So the team that we're working with and our engineers are aware of that. Spoken to folks in town as well.
So is that
And
through Ed Gentile and
Yes, and certainly
Public Works.
and
Okay.
Public Works.
This picture is
Yeah,
not back up
that's it.
from.
Not to mean to go back and forth,
Yeah.
but you reminded me of that, so thank you.
Ginny,
Next, anybody else?
I've been to more than half a dozen of these meetings. I've never spoken before. I don't like speaking in public.
Which one are you?
Vincent Shanley from 6 Crane Road, Darien.
Got you.
Might not look like it, but I was a Jones Beach lifeguard for 10 years. I worked on Robert
Why would you
Moses.
say that?
I spent a good portion of my time working at Sunken Meadow State Park, which is on Long Island Sound's North Shore, Hither Hill State Park out on the east coast of Long Island. Everywhere you go, the beaches are spectacular. Some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. There's nothing on the beach. They don't build any structures anywhere close to the waterline. There's nothing that impedes the view and the beauty of Long Island beaches. When you walk down to the waterline, you look either west or east, you have spectacular views of the water. If this goes through as proposed, you walk down to what is now going to be South Beach, you look west, you're going to see a giant structure, 2 stories tall, blocking the sunset. Maybe the people that get the 3 select little tables, like when you go to Jamaica and they put their towels on the bench at 6 o'clock in the morning so you can't get a chair. If there's 3 little tables up there, that those people get to see the sunset. But the other people along the beach, when you look down, you won't see the sunset. You're going to see a 2-story structure, 21 feet high, at least. Never mind what FEMA has to say, blocking your view. Those are my points on that. Your point, you're elected. I think that's a very, very big point around this whole town. You guys are elected by the people. We're the people that keep coming to these meetings time and time again, saying, I can't see the beach from my house. I live on Crane Road, yeah, but I can't see it. But I'm there all the time. It's a spectacular facility. I really hope it doesn't get ruined.
Thank you. Sure.
Susie Fahey, I live on Coachland. I don't see the water at all. Pear Tree is one of the most special places in Fairfield County. It's one of the only beaches left that you can pull in your car and sit there, and I watch elderly people, I'm there all year long, and they are sitting in their car enjoying that view. You can't go to Greenwich beaches, you can't go to Fairfield beaches and sit in a car and see the water. if we could take some of the rocks off the beach so that you can walk into the water safely, people are helping other people try to get in the water or out of the water. Pear Tree is so small. Keep things in perspective, in the size that makes sense there. It's a beautiful place. Keep it simple. If you try to draw more people to Pear Tree, sometimes you're sitting side by side by side by side. It's a small beach. The more people we bring to that beach, I don't know where they're going to park and where they're going to sit. Keep it simple. Keep it beautiful. Treasure it the way it is.
You know what KISS is?
My name is Bridget Whitney, and I live on Beach Drive, but I love that beach as my sanctuary. I'm there all the time. I just got involved in this like a month ago, but I was there yesterday from 8:30 in the morning till after dark last night. I spoke with everybody on that beach. I've been speaking to them in this last month that I've been involved. I have pictures here from yesterday. This is off season. There were so many families, groups of people bringing their stuff. There were elderly people, there were young people, there were people without kids. They all flocked to that end of the beach. It's off season, guys. This is when that space is going to be rented. And I'm just telling you, I canvassed that whole beach. And if you were there, you saw me. I spoke to people. There were probably 2 people who are you aware of the second story structure that the town is trying to build? No. No, 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 no. People are not aware of this project. Furthermore, they're not for it. They're like, oh my God, why would they do that? I love this. Like we said earlier, we're all for renovation of the existing structure. If you go with the existing structure, as I understand it, there is no hardship. It's already grandfathered. It's there. Clean it up, maintain it. How are you going to maintain a bigger facility when you haven't even maintained what we've had there? It's been there since 1973. The people, I spoke to them. I was there all day yesterday. And they're from Coachland, they're from Gardner, they're from West Avenue. They're not the 7,000 square feet people. I'm not one of them either. But to these points, you guys, the elected, this is a representative government. I work in the schools. The money needs to go. Sandy, you know too. Go up and stand behind Oxbridge School. I've been in these schools for 10 years subbing. The condition of these portables, the backs of these schools that nobody ever sees, that's where our money needs to be going. Not into renovated 2-story flexible space. That beach, and I'll leave the pictures. I brought them. I took them from yesterday. Take a look. Then put that decking up 21 feet, decking all the way around, and another set of decking all the way around the gazebo. That's where all our people are. They're enjoying that beach. And please listen to the people. And that survey is bogus. I've done all the research on that too. I would beg to differ that that's statistically significant.
Thank you.
Back in the
There
corner
you
here.
go.
My name is Perry Boyle. I live at 150 Goodwives River Road.
Okay.
So I'm about a mile from the beach. I don't see the beach. I'm on the other side of the bridge, so the beach traffic doesn't affect me. A little tired of getting derided as a neighbor when I'm not a neighbor. Pam Gary wanted this. That was your question. And she's very proud of Lee Beach, and so is the P&Z Commission, and rightfully so. But they did spend $2 million on a building that they rent for $15,000 a year. So that's 30 basis points if you do the math. Like, it's not an economic reason to do this, right? The concession and flexible community space have been downsized dramatically, and I really applaud the commission for thinking about this. But it's binary. Like, a concession stand on the second floor at a beach, like, come on. And to my knowledge, there's been no market studies whatsoever done on this concession. No one has looked at the historic usage. No one has done a survey or anything on prospective usage. No one has really analyzed the current concessionaire's economics of this. And the cost of putting equipment into this kitchen for rentable space. The town is going, I think, they anticipated the town was going to pay for that in the future, which again makes no sense. The elevator, per the architect, will require 4 times the maintenance cost of a normal elevator. It needs to essentially be, quote, marine hardened. because of the salt environment. Year-round heat, just think about that expense for a minute. And this goes back to the cost. I don't know about you, but when I build a house, I have a budget first. Like, this is like, let's come up with something, and then whatever it pays for, whatever it costs, we'll just bond for. Okay, and I'm not making up that statement. That statement was made in one of the building committee meetings. We'll just bond for it.
Yes.
Well, it's been said often, not
Yeah.
just the building
It's
committee.
absurd. As a taxpayer, I'm quite insulted by that, frankly. We have zoning rules for a reason. There is no hardship at this location, and yet they're going to plead hardship. A third of this building is over the setback. The overhang will be over the setback. FEMA has rules for a reason, and yet the architect originally conspired to basically commit a fraud on FEMA in that they were going to build a building that didn't touch the existing building, and so they could get around FEMA regulations that way. Like, that's just ridiculous. And then finally, I don't know if the town or the committee has taken this into account, but if this building is built, there will be a lawsuit. And I think that should go into the budget as well. Because my attorney has told me it will cost the town at least $500,000 to defend itself on this. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you have other things to do, so I'll keep this brief. Delise Bolatin, 150 Pear Tree Point Road. I do live right across the street from the beach. And I agree with what everyone who has spoken tonight. I have the exact same sentiments. I just want to say, because I live there, every single morning, I hear people from the town come with those machines to churn up the beach to try to hide the rocks and the sand. I see them come out and have to shovel the sand after the tide has come over to put it back on the beach. I see all of this money being spent, but they're not spending it on the right things. Yes, improve what is there. Get some nice sand on the beach. I don't think it has to be made bigger. I think it's perfect the way it is. And just improve what's there. Make it just a beautiful place that people want to spend time.
Thank you. Okay, folks.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thanks very
Very
much.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work,
Thank you
too.
for having the public comment. That was very
Delise, can I ask you one question before you leave?
Yeah.
At one point, you had gone to see.
Well, that's not
No, this is a Pam Geary question, this is why I'm asking her.
Let's move on, please,
Okay.
now.
All right,
Let's
so
move on,
at a
please.
later
You
date,
can ask that later.
the seal going up into your place with regards to berms or not, okay? Thanks. She never
Okay, I'm
spoke
gonna give the chairman's report now, which I don't think is gonna be too long, folks, but, yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, guys.
We really appreciate it.
Great chatting with you all.
Thank you.
And I appreciate all of what's been said.
Yeah,
so
I know it's
appreciate
hard,
it.
Mike, working
No,
hard,
it's,
we
look,
appreciate it, we really appreciate it.
But I do appreciate the sentiment about, I know you guys are elected officials.
Everybody loves the beach.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thanks. Good
Thank
night,
you.
guys.
thank you for listening.
Can somebody walk me to my car, please? Okay. Good night.
I think he's asking some.
Right, so we'll move on.
Who is he?
He's the chairman, one of the chairmen of the building committee.
I asked him to come this evening, so that if we had questions, that Cheryl and I wouldn't necessarily know what the detailed response.
It was good having
Because
him.
he's been, he's been living it for a year. So, it's complicated, folks. If it was easy, it would have already been done. So here we go. No, it's complicated. And everybody, frankly, loves the beach. So everybody's, wants to preserve it and take care of it. I mean, that is the point. At least it is mine. So, folks, we're gonna do some updates on things that have been going on. Woodland Park, we had, if you remember in the budget, we had, there was money in there for a survey in the Woodland Park, and so they put their different all their information together, And they found that there were no major encroachments on the park property,
Wow.
which was the point of the survey, so
Really?
this
By-
is good.
by
We're
joining-
talking about wood,
By adjoining property owners and
Exactly.
residential homes.
exactly.
Do you recall the amount of money we spent on that survey?
No, I'd have to go back and look at the,
Okay.
at the Capitol. Cherry Lawn, that Global Motion,
It's there.
it's there.
The what?
The merry-go-round.
Oh.
They were talking about putting in, we were over there this
We took a
afternoon.
walk through today, and I wanted Adele to get on it, but she wouldn't.
It doesn't go very
Too bad,
fast.
they were a
Well,
little
that's what
push.
I heard, so I think they were
It's
trying
really
to,
hard to turn.
they were trying to see if they could help that, but I don't know what's
I thought
happening.
that was maybe like a safety thing or something.
I don't know, I think they were calling them manufacturer and to see if,
Is it in the playground?
It's where the old
it's next to it.
In the adult, in the larger kids
In the
playground?
adult
Not-
playground?
in the
The
adult-
adult one?
That would be the beach for you and me.
Is that what you were gonna say?
Yeah, it's not the enclosed one, it's the one further out.
Okay.
So it's kinda cool looking, I give it
Yeah.
that. I hope it goes
No,
faster
merry-go-round
than it was
instead of
going.
a
Taking a photo
two-story
while we're
building.
You're right, you're right, okay. The cross-country running path at Diller. Over the summer, I think the commission decided when they voted on it that for the first year, I don't know if you remember, the first year there won't be any dogs allowed in it. And the contractor's supposed to start on September 22nd.
Great.
September, did you say September?
Next week.
Yeah, exactly.
It's coming up.
Yeah. Weed Beach Meadow and Trail Project. I think the meetings, and it's too bad Mike left, because he could probably tell us, because they were having meetings, September 16th with the foundation to move the project along, and at September 17th, he and Pam and I think Weston and Sampson were going to a deep meeting, DEP meeting. On the, so it's moving along, nothing's happened yet, and they will submit, the plans will go to P&Z, and the final plans will come back to the commission before it happens. So that's just still in process. We'll pay attention to that as it goes along.
And the Darien Foundation and Darien, the two foundations are in
Athletic.
lockstep with them.
Yeah, yeah,
Two foundations.
yeah, it's two foundations. It's
Oh, I thought you were talking about
the Athletic Foundation and the
Darien Foundation.
foundation.
Okay, is that the
Yeah.
building? Well, because you
We're
had
talking
said.
about
that-
weed, we're talking about weed.
Yeah, but you said that they were going to the DEP.
I know that, I know it, but it's for this project, for the weed.
Yeah, but Mike has nothing to do with that.
I don't, he's a commission member though.
Oh, right.
I assumed
Okay.
that was the reason, unless it was just a typo and it was the other thing we're going for. But anyway, I'm reading off of,
Okay.
reading
so
off of the director's
Weed
report
Beach.
for this week.
Right.
For the commission meeting this week, which is on
Okay.
Wednesday. There are new picnic tables and umbrellas at Weed Beach and Highland Farm. Wesson and Sampson has been hired to work with Pam Geary on the landscaping. And Kate Bush is working on the RFP, and after that, the bids will go out for the parking and the walking trail.
Is there a butterfly garden in Strawberry?
Not yet, but they've got a area where you can work on it for them.
The pollinator pathways, they've talked about.
That's true,
Yeah.
I think
exactly.
it makes
You're
great
right.
sense to be there in the corner spots.
You're right about that, and we're teasing, but yeah,
So
you're right.
I'm just taking your notes real quick. So for Weston and Sampson hired to do the landscaping in conjunction with Pam, Gary, and you said the second thing was?
Kate Bush is working on the RFP for the parking lot and the walking trail.
Okay, thank you.
The smoking ban is in all parks and the signs have been installed.
Good.
Beachgate receipts are up this summer and the paddle season starts this weekend.
Speaking of paddle, what happened with the tokening thing?
Have not heard anything more about it.
I think I
Of
know.
late.
I know,
You do, good.
because I belong to
You decided to
Tokenique and
stay?
Oxford. They struck a deal with Tokenique and Oxford,
Oh, good.
so they will maintain their paddle courts there at
Oh,
Oxford.
good.
And for the
I think
next like
that's-
40 years. It
Oh,
was
wow.
a big A long time,
Good.
long time too.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's it, so
Yeah,
that will not come back to the
they're keeping
town.
it, yeah.
That's probably the best of all possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then there's no conflict of interest that Pam was worried about.
So why haven't they started the parking at the Oxridge?
I think they.
The what?
Because they've got, well,
Isn't
they
there
just
some
said
She has to
it's
do
just a
an
temporary
RFP.
one,
Oh.
but because they've got to, it's gotta go out to bid
Request
for to build the parking lots and the walking trail.
Okay.
So the town administrator is working on those, on the, the legal stuff that has to
Yeah.
go out. So
I'm
that's
surprised,
why.
yeah, and to that point, I was surprised that the jogging trail it wasn't starting until September at this high school. Because didn't we push to vote for that on our June
We
meeting
did,
and
but
all
obviously
that?
things take longer than one thinks that they do, so.
Yeah,
So,
that was
and they,
supposed to be
and
the
it
easy
said
thing.
in the one
Yeah.
thing that blurb that I
Well,
read,
next
that
year,
hope
cross
to be
country.
finished, expect to be
Not this
finished,
year.
hope to be
I thought it was
finished
a done
in the
deal.
spring,
I know.
so. And I think, we had one more thing, didn't we,
We don't care.
Diane?
Problem.
I'm looking at this.
It's, they don't be more.
Nature
that
center.
stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Nature center?
The nature center,
We
What's with
walked
them?
there today.
so, yeah. that was
We're
what
going to P and Z, I think, tomorrow night.
Well, I think
It's
they.
in the paper.
I know it's in the paper, but they have to have permission from the Parks and Rec Commission. And the Parks and Rec Commission doesn't meet until Wednesday night. And so,
Well, what is it that they wanna do? Because when we were at the last commission
Exactly. Go
meeting,
ahead and say.
they just passed out a packet and they never discussed it, cause it was at the end of the meeting.
right.
So I have no idea what,
So
That was
we obviously
parking.
have to discuss it at their next meeting.
That was parking related and nature center taken.
It's
care of.
expansion.
I don't know.
And
Do you
programs
have the
as well.
report
Yes.
and the,
They wanna, the idea is to amend their permit
for what?
for what they do there.
They want to have more programming and they want to increase the numbers with some of the children's
Yeah,
programs.
okay.
And they'd like to have an event 10 times a year, which you're talking, is it 200?
Nature Center building and parking lot is available for, this is what they've done is they've gone through and, and edited their old permit to what they wanna do now. And to the beginning of it, right now they're allowed 8 evening meetings. And these meetings will be board and committee meetings. And the rest of it read, and shall not be programs offered to the public.
It's not, let me just clarify that.
Okay.
It's not their committee meetings, it's anybody who wants to use the place.
You mean in the building?
Yeah.
In other words, they can't like rent it out or give it out to a nonprofit to use other than,
Well, I think, the
Well-
easiest way is, maybe I should send this to you guys. I know you're gonna have questions. It's
Right.
detailed. I can read it to you now.
I think
Well,
that might be
I-
good to give them
Yeah, I mean,
an
I'd like
idea
attachments
of-
for things that we're gonna be discussing on everything in advance would be really helpful.
Well, I
Yeah.
only.
Yeah, but I'm sure you just got them,
No,
I'm sure
let
they
me,
just
no,
got them.
let me tell you, I didn't just
Yeah.
get it, but there's a bit of a tension here, because this is the commission's business, and they haven't had an opportunity to talk about it, okay? So that is a little bit of being, they ought to have an opportunity to talk about it, but I want you to
Yeah,
know,
I
and
agree with you.
and I have a copy of it, only because they've, shared,
So
so.
are we gonna vote on this?
So you've just given
Is
us
this
the
coming?
feedback in advance, and then when you know more, you'll send that.
Yeah, but we won't have a meeting until next month, so is to amend their,
We're not gonna vote on it because we can't do it in the same night. Maybe they can.
well, not
they can't.
tonight,
Yeah.
no, but, no, is this gonna come to the full RTM? That's my question.
It's not a money thing, is it?
I don't think so. I can't think of any reason why it would.
But we-
Are they-
This is a P and Z thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not asking to build anything.
they're asking to
To
enlarge,
expand, not to enlarge their
not
facility.
physically, I mean, to
Enlarge program.
programming and
And
things
to-
in the same amount of physical space.
And to have
Correct,
additional
and
parking.
to have additional parking, to use more of the parking than they're using now.
Are they going to be adding parking spaces?
Well, I can pass this, what I'm gonna do is,
No, they're gonna use the overflow, they're going to use, most of the big programming they're talking about is from 6 to 10 p.m. And they're talking about the spaces that they have over there themselves, and then
I only have one copy of this, and it's very awkward when we're up
also
past it. You guys can have a look-see.
overflow, which is
Um,
not paid for that.
Yeah, the
Well,
one up by the ball
they
field is
only
the
have
overflow.
1 acre, at least 1 acre of land. Is this still encompassing into their 1 acre of land? Or are they expanding out of
No,
their
they're
acre?
not, they're not expanding their premises. They're asking to amend their permit. They'd like to have programs that are involving, at this point, there are 12 children, they'd like it to be 24. They're, during the summer months, the Nature Center may run a summer program with a maximum of, right now, it's 48 children, they'd like to make it 85.
Wow.
Like the library.
85 to, from what?
There are some, obviously they wouldn't conflict with Park and Rec. There are some special there are some special events conducted by the Nature Center each year. These events have attracted 250 to 300 people. These special events must be coordinated. Now, this is already in here, okay? This is nothing new. The special events must be coordinated with Park and Rec Commission to avoid conflicts with other activities in the park and to assure that proper safety requirements will be satisfied. The Nature Center hosts an annual event on the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend that is attended by 800 to 1,500 people, depending on weather. And I do remember that we heard about that
Down
last
the
year.
farm, yeah.
Right, the farm thing.
Down at the
Yeah,
farm.
exactly. This event requires the approval and participation of the Parks and Recreation Commission and is in coordination with the Darien Police Department. In addition, birthday parties are allowed on Saturday and Sunday afternoons for up to 14 children. They want to increase that to 24. There's no scheduled programming now proposed by the Nature Center to be held on Sundays. The Nature Center may, however, will be open to the general public for drop-in visits from 12 noon to 3 p.m. and open on Sunday mornings and afternoon for birthday parties. That's what it says. And in bold at the end, and I'm assuming they're adding that. The Nature Center building and parking lot is available for nonprofit or private event rentals, no more than 10 times per year during non-operating hours. These events do not exceed 200 attendees and are permitted, if necessary, by the Parks and Recreation Commission. Now, I'm guessing you might have some questions about that. I would be happy to ask the commission
Well,
any questions that we have about
is
these
this,
changes.
by giving them what they're asking, will that limit the amount of regular citizens that take their families there on weekends? There'd be less space, I would think, within the park.
Seems reasonable to assume that.
How many parking spaces do they have now?
We didn't really add them up.
It was on that
the
thing.
map.
There's 27 parking spaces here.
Open
This is their-
the underneath, that's not theirs.
That's not
Oh,
theirs.
that's not
No,
theirs.
pull it
That's the
out.
whole
No, no, no.
part.
No, the whole thing, it's bigger than all that. You're just doing the second half of it.
Yeah, open it from the bottom.
From the
That
front.
one, yeah,
There
that's
you
the
go.
picture.
This one.
Spread it all out.
Their parking spaces.
There you go.
Okay, so
I
this
didn't
is,
even know that there was a parking lot right next to the Nature Center, but there
Yeah.
is. It's
There is,
really
yeah.
well screened,
Yes.
really well.
Yeah.
this one
Behind the
over
tennis
here.
court
That's
is
right.
the
Right.
Yes.
It's
And
on the
that's
other side of the
25
building.
spots. And then this was their
Other
drop
side
off
of the Nature
and
Center
continue
building.
in and out.
Back in there.
So
Yes.
And
staff,
then over there is
In other words, if you're
the 27
You're staring at
spots.
the Nature
Right.
Center.
You're
It's on
facing the
across
front
from-
door, you're right through the bushes of the
But
park.
now,
Yeah.
I
I
never
didn't
put cherry
know
on
Oh.
as a recreation,
But
like,
Across.
that's
right,
still-
and this is the
It's
end,
not as a
right?
recreation.
And the playground is over
but I
here.
went.
And this is the dirt plate
The
parking spots,
overflow.
right? And then this is in
Up by the
front
ball
of
field.
And then that's
tennis
the-
courts
the other-
area.
Yes.
Okay, so what do they want?
They're
They
just,
wanna be able to use not only theirs, but
Yeah.
This
that and the
also?
overflow.
if
they
you
need
look at
for
the
their-
red
for
and the
people who work
overflow, I
there.
think that's their, is that their staff?
staff
It's their
cars.
staff parking.
Right.
They're asking.
And this is gonna be what, When do they wanna use this, during the week or on weekends?
Yeah.
Well, if you look there, there's a
Just-
different iteration for each one of those, all the possibilities.
You need-
There's an
if
event,
you've
well,
been
these are
around, you
different
know,
times.
issues.
Different
There's
times.
different times,
To your
and then
point.
there's summer and
Oh.
so forth.
And even if
Okay.
you better
So read.
Summer camp,
Okay, summer
vote on
camp,
something that's significant.
Yeah.
I could not imagine 85 people being dropped off for camp there. I mean, I've done camp and it's a nightmare. You're like out on Brookside waiting to pull in to drop
Yep.
your kid off. And they're gonna double that? That's not-
Are they trying to do 85 kids simultaneously or in shifts?
No,
No.
sounds like
summer
all together.
kids,
Simultaneously.
so, school year.
Yeah. Well, I think,
If summer camp would be
Adele would
between
say
one
probably they would
fifteen
have
to one,
it said at any given time,
and then
it did say at any given time,
Is
so it's
there any-
85 at
Yeah.
any given time.
Fundraising.
On
is
either
not
side, there
one
seemed to be,
pickup.
that was dropped on them at the last
1:15
minute, that last meeting, and there was gonna be
There's only
big
the
pushback,
two-year-old
it
camp.
seems.
Summer
Starts
camp
different.
drop
So-
off,
here's
All the other
drop
ones
off
start at
between
9:20
and 9:40.
40,
And 9:40.
and they're
It's a
saying,
4-hour camp, 9 to 1.
Okay,
Blue.
that's it,
what is this?
9:20.
That's
Temporary.
spots. Yeah, but
Well,
those
maybe
are
the
there.
people who, I mean, the people
Those
who
are
work
their,
in nature
that's
center
their
should be
parking.
having this
No, no, no.
conversation.
Right, that's their parking and their,
Yes, and then
right.
this is up there, I'm here.
This
I
is
don't-
temporary
qualified to
parking.
judge if
Pardon me?
that's too many
This is
kids to be
temporary
dropped off.
parking,
Yeah.
I
the
really
blue.
don't.
That's what this says.
Yeah, but with the
And
blue
this
is
is
that,
the
that,
drop off.
but that's their own parking.
That's
lot.
their,
That's
that's
way out.
within their acre
Back
of,
up.
of
That's not 85 kids.
land.
What do you do there?
Summer camp 2,
That's crazy.
12.
Well, it's like being dropped off at
So-
Middlesex.
Yeah.
They
Sometimes
want
there's no
85
money
kids
left.
in the summer
I've been
camp.
to that. I've been to the
That's a
thing.
good
I'm
idea.
walking my dog there a couple of times.
It's a bit-
9:20
it-
Can't get in there.
It's a
Nine,
busy
from
park.
9:20 to 9:40.
And
It's a
from-
tight-
And
pick
then-
up.
And then pick up, well, how long does this thing go for?
Well,
An
here-
hour?
Here, look, over here.
It's a finite amount of time, but there's a line.
Well, this is pickup too, noon pickup.
Is there a demand? Are
Drop
kids
off-
getting shut out of the
Okay,
program?
this is very
because there are
confusing.
no
Drop
spaces?
off at
Yes.
9:20. Then there's a pickup, let's just say 11:45. And there's a pickup at 1:15, so there's
But
two
it's just
different
for
age
two-year-olds.
groups.
It's for
Okay.
2-year-olds that only have that 2-hour window. So they allow up to like age 7. So 2-year-olds represent only a certain portion of that. It's not very much.
Okay, so then the 7-year-olds go to 1:40 from say.
My experience is it's 9 to 1. Maybe they're gonna change the times or slot it so it's
9
easier
to 1,
for
I can
people
see,
to-
yeah, I can see the 9 to 1 over here.
Maybe they're gonna stagger it. I'm sure they're gonna give a presentation to the,
Yeah.
to the commission, and so we'll know
No.
more details
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
this.
Thank you for going through this with us, Philip.
But
I
if
appreciate it.
anybody wants to ask questions, you said
Yeah,
you
if you
take
have-
them on Wednesday night.
I will
Oh,
take.
do you want us to submit questions to you to ask? Is that what
Sure,
you're
if, I
asking?
mean, if
Yeah.
anybody has to, because we tend to speak at the beginning of the meeting and then.
I know,
So
and
then
then
go do
they
something.
can't say anything for the
Yeah,
rest
so-
of the meeting,
So if
which is
anybody has
very-
anything you want me to ask, shoot it to me and
I just think that it's a
You say
lot of
shoot me?
people.
Shoot it to me.
You're-
No, that's
you're
that's the
there,
building,
you're
that's the
involved
building.
in it.
I'm only one anecdote. I mean, I'm sure other people have different experiences.
Well, judging by being there today.
How was
We
it
stood
today?
there for a long time and watched the cars, and the soccer was starting,
Yeah,
and
soccer.
they were,
Yeah.
those
I
spots
stopped
were.
doing the camp because I felt like I wasted my free time of my window when I should be just being able to pull up and drop them off. I was sitting in the line. I was like, it's cutting into my time where I was paying for them to be at
Well,
camp.
that, I took my grandson there a number of years back, and I parked. I pulled in and I parked there, and then
Yeah.
I walked him, which was a little bit easier. But that lot still had spaces, but people were parked in front of the nature center to come to the soccer. And then the
Soccer fields over here.
the lot over here was filled, the 27, and the one across the 20 was filled. And there were people in that one, and there was no baseball today. Sometimes there's baseball in that field back there as well.
So just keep
what-
that in mind when you
these
get pitched,
spaces, I
putting a
think, were-
pool, a Terran lawn on top of that. There's zero space.
Yeah.
Zero.
So,
space.
zero space.
Oh, they-
You
It's-
could have
it's a
an
pretty
underground
padded
garage
park.
Two-story garage.
underneath the
A
pool.
lot of activities, very active,
Underground. All right.
very active.
So,
Alrighty.
So, I I think it's way too much, but what do I know?
So,
I mean, I've been there with my grandchildren and now when he plays baseball and things, and this place is hopping.
Yeah.
It's
I've always
a
been
really
hopping.
very busy park.
Great park.
It's a great
Yeah,
park.
it's a
It's a
great
great park. We're very fortunate to have it.
They gotta buy more land.
Oh, yeah, where is that coming?
And honestly, people from other towns use that park,
Yes.
and
Oh,
they
yeah.
use the playground.
Yes.
So it's not, that could be part of it.
Yeah.
Do
We
we have
have that
anything
too
else
at the beach
on
too.
our agenda?
But they
Don't-
pay to
but
come in.
during the
don't they?
high
That's it,
season, they would
guys.
pay.
Can I make a motion to,
Yes.
to close? I make a motion to,
Or you finished it though.
I am.
That's what I
Excuse
looked,
me.
yeah,
didn't
no, I
mean to
looked at her
interrupt.
first before I said that.
one
Second.
thing,
Yeah,
Patty,
okay.
you gotta, the one piece of paper's gotta be filled out and stuck underneath the clerk's door.
So is that under Donna's door?
Yes, the
Okay.
vote.
I'll
The
do that
vote
on the
needs
way
to
out.
go there, not,
Motion.
not the attendance, you keep the attendance. But the vote.
We didn't, what did we vote on?
The voting, no, we voted, yeah, I'll just watch it
Oh,
for a
on the
second.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but
So is there there's a motion?
Yeah, a motion.
There's a second,
It has
all in
been
favor?
seconded.
There we go.
Aye.
Good night, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.